Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined Tristan Farnan as he travels across Yorkshire, treating animals, and arrive at episode 230. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
I'm good.
I'm well.
I'm tired.
I can't imagine why.
So nothing like dropping right in the middle of your vacation,
vacation.
an overnighter.
Yeah, so we're recording on Monday again because I had to work overnight Monday morning. So I got about 6 hours of sleep earlier and got back up at like 3.
Which hindsight's 2020. This would have been the week I could have done the morning show because Holly was off today.
Oh, really?
I didn't even think of that.
Well, this allowed me to have more than a week off at a time.
Oh, that's true.
So since we're not supposed to have more than 5 days off in a row, I was able to do the 2 and 4, and works out really well. Aside from the overnight, it's just exhausting moving.
I bet you're tired.
Yeah.
Like from that.
Mostly
Exhausted.
from that.
I'm surprised you didn't ask for any help this weekend.
We were going to, and Sarah's parents has some neighbor kids. They're not kids, they're teenagers. 18, 19.
Are they younger than you?
They're younger than me. So
They're kids.
There are child labor laws.
They're
Keith.
teenagers. We paid them.
Even worse.
We didn't force them to do it. They did it willingly. And one of them even had a truck. So we wound up... We didn't intend to do it because we went to...
That's why I didn't get called.
Well, I have my dad's truck because he's in Palestine right now. So I can just drive his truck around.
What's your dad doing in Palestine?
So my stepsister, who I think I've talked about because my parents have gone to Thailand before.
Yes.
You have a stepsister?
Technically 2, yeah. But got married, and her German husband is a contract worker of some sort and is currently in Palestine for 1.5 years. And they just had a baby.
Oh.
So, actually on Carol's birthday, it was Carol's birthday today, Monday, so that they were able to be over there for Carol's birthday.
Well, that's cool.
They left last weekend, and they come back the 1st. So it's like a 2-week trip. But so I have his truck, and so we've been moving stuff that way. And then the kids were available, and so we just kind of knocked it out real quick on Thursday afternoon before any rain came. So it's been really small stuff since then.
Well, I will say this. I would have been more than glad to help, but I am so glad I got
I am glad.
that is my least favorite thing in the world to do is move.
Sarah and I have been sore the last several days because of the move. Josh and Austin, the neighbor kids, and even Mike, Sarah's brother. Oh, they're fine.
Well, they're young.
Well, Mike's not even that
Yeah,
much
but he was
younger.
in the
He's
Army.
only 5 years. Yeah, he still is.
Still
So
in the
he's
Army,
he's fit. So yeah, we're almost all moved. We have a few more things left at the apartment. I have to go clean it, and then we're in the middle of unpacking still.
You said Mike's fit. I wonder how many of our British listeners took that in the British context.
Well, yeah, he's not fit in that way, but
To you, maybe to some people, yes.
I'm sure. Yeah. Okay. But unfortunately, that means I haven't got to do much at all. I'm halfway through the bookshelf now. We've got most of the kitchen unpacked. We don't know how to set up the living room still.
Have you painted one wall blue yet?
We haven't painted any walls yet. Cox guy came out. That's our internet service.
Glad you clarified. The Cox guy showed up.
And we actually... It was going to be like $75 to transfer the service between the apartment and the house. It was ridiculous. But the guy said if we had HBO and Showtime, it's transfers free and it's only $4 a month. For no contract.
For now.
Yeah, and
For 3 months.
I'll cancel it in 2 months and I'll be good to go. So it was kind of nice. We actually got to sit down and watch Game of Thrones as it aired on Sunday.
You're there. Yeah, I still haven't watched Sundays. You're there.
With the exception of him, we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay, we can talk up through.
I completely forgot that it was on last night, and because I usually watch it Monday morning, but the family was home, so I didn't even think about it today.
Yeah. I got
so I'll have to watch tomorrow after kids.
Yeah,
go to
we
school.
were doing stuff, and I was like, "Oh, Getting close to 8 o'clock. Let's go watch Game of Thrones because we can.
You're the people that those companies, when they do that, hate. Because you're really good about, okay, I'm going to sign up and I'm going to cancel. Because they count on people like me that will forget and be 8 months into it going, I really ought to cancel this. I keep paying for this.
Yeah,
I usually see it. I see it on the bill going, I should cancel that. I'll do it when I get around to it.
You are
they like me.
You are what is known as slippage.
Yes. And that's why I don't sign up for those offers anymore.
We'll probably get to the first one where it's jumped up and be like, okay, nope, never mind. Although I'm assuming because it's the Memorial Day weekend, the website hasn't recognized the change. Because I was going to all right, we're going to sign up for HBO Go and do that for the time being. Because I thought, we'll just watch it there in case we're too busy moving. But I can't sign up for it yet because it doesn't recognize that I have HBO subscription. And I was looking at it, and one of the movies I've been wanting to see for a really long time is on there. Frequently asked questions about time travel. It's never gotten a DVD release in the U.S. And it sounds Frequently Asked Questions About Time Travel.
I'll have to look for that.
It's got Chris O'Dowd in it, and it's supposedly hilarious. So I'm itching to get that activated so I can go watch that movie more than anything else. And then I'll cancel it because I don't care anymore. I've got a lot of stuff on there that I've seen and some stuff I own. So,
speaking of HBO, I watched Ender's Game.
Oh,
it's on there.
What'd you think?
It's all right. Didn't leave me wanting a sequel. So
it was better than I expected.
Have you read the book?
It was fine. No, remember that's the one that I thought I had, and then I saw the previews for the movie and went, I don't look anything like I remember, and realized it was a different book I'd read. So no.
Now that you've seen the movie, I'd be curious to have you read the book and see what you think. Because
I've heard the book's a lot better.
The book's a lot better, but the book also goes into a lot of the Ender's mindset and stuff that you just can't do on film. But I think this was probably the closest film version we're going to get ever.
It's one of those films that was... I thought it was fine. The twist at the end, twist-ish, I kind of saw it coming, but the way that the direction the movie goes makes it a better film.
I would agree.
But... I don't know. It was the acting was fine. Everybody did a superb job. I thought Ben Kingsley's character was way underused.
He was underused in the book too.
Was he?
Well, at least that does that justice.
And yeah, I kind of saw it coming, and of course they leave it for sequel purposes, but it didn't do well at the theater. I got online to find out. I said, "Well, is this thing going to get a sequel?" And I looked, and I was like, "It doesn't look like it."
The interesting thing with the books is if they were to do, at least originally, the next book is Speaker for the Dead, and it picks up, 50, 60 years later in Ender's life. So he's kind of an old man almost at that point. He's still way younger than anybody else because he's been traveling so much. Like he gets on the ship and leaves. So at the faster than light speeds, he's still relatively young, but it's still been 50 or 60 years for him versus the hundreds of years that have kind of passed in Earth history.
Well,
and everything leading up to it.
Didn't Orson Scott Card also go back and do an in between?
He started filling in several. Yeah, he was going to initially license them out to other people, and then suddenly decided, no, I think I do want to tell that story. So he's done several of them that kind of dealt with, he did a few that dealt with what happened on Earth after Ender left, and then a couple of Ender coming back. And
that's what I've heard.
Kind of dealing with Ender on the ship.
I didn't realize until I was reading up on about the movie that it's 18 years in the making. He's been trying to do it for 18. In fact, he wrote the original screenplay and shopped it around. And from what I read, I can't remember the guy that actually did it, but this is back to nearly what his original screenplay was, with some changes and differences. But it was interesting that it took a whole different direction.
I think even Cameron was attached to it at one point.
Wasn't it one of those books that so many people said was unfilmable for the longest time?
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been Card, because Card's been ever since he did it. He wrote it. He said the book as it is would not have made a good movie. He said that's why he watered a lot of it down in his original treatment and just focused primarily on Enders, according to the thing, and took a lot of that inner dialogue out. He said you couldn't do that.
Yeah, you just can't do it. And there's a lot of it that's, they play with his mind a lot in the book. And it's great. It's fascinating. And he's 8 years old, and look at the little stuff they do to him, and blah, 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 blah. It just wouldn't work.
And what I didn't like about the movie is it's very rushed. It's like, this happens, then this happens, then this happens, then this happens, and the movie's over.
Yeah,
they're
trying to...
Yeah, they're squeezing all that into...
Yeah, without trying to cut anything.
I think if you... it almost... I don't rarely say this, but it almost could have stood to be about 45 minutes longer, I think.
I could
totally
see that, yeah.
Especially when he... Spoilers for anybody who haven't seen this. I'm not going to ruin the end, because I think it's one of those pivotal movies that you kind of have to see and see the ending for yourself. But it's when he leaves... When he gets mad when he nearly kills the one kid.
Yeah, when he goes home.
Yeah, and goes home. That was just like...
goes back to Earth.
Yeah.
He's home. Sis comes by. Go back. He goes back. He's like, all right. That could have used some development, but it was fine. It was good. I liked Harrison. It's a Harrison Ford movie, so
yeah. Well, and
of course I'm going to like it.
Here's the deal: if they ever do get around to making Speaker, when I read Speaker for the Dead, all I could picture, because Ender comes across very much like kind of a burned out Jedi Knight. Mm. He's tired of being the hero of the thing, and he's got the responsibility for this, at the end of the thing, and he's just better. And I just thought Mark Hamill needs to play Ender. Mark Hamill needs to play Ender, and it would be so cool now that he is of that age.
It sounds like the direction they're going with Star Wars is kind of that. So
I could almost see Asia Butterfield growing up to look similar to Mark Hamill. Yeah. Just darken his hair. Give him dark hair or just gray hair.
Well, Mark Hamill's got gray hair now. So.
Well, it's grayish, dirty blonde still.
And now I am excited that Asia Butterfield got the casting as the casting choice for Peter Parker.
Well, it's still rumored, right? Or is that rumored?
I thought it was pretty official.
It's all but official. Marvel hasn't officially came out, but all of the insiders in Marvel are saying, this is where we're going.
He posted some tweets and had to take them down.
Yeah. I think it's because I think Feige actually wants to make the announcement.
I think he's probably a good choice. I'm slightly disappointed they didn't go a different direction instead of doing Peter Parker.
That I agree with. Like, I think Asia Butterfield would be great as Peter Parker.
Yeah, he'll do a great job.
I'm so tired of the Peter Parker story. We've had Peter Parker, we've had Norman Osborn. Why didn't we get another Spider-Man?
Yeah.
I disagree because Marvel has been relatively faithful to everybody's characters. I mean, Nick Fury, obviously, they use the Ultimate...
Well, they're pulling so much of the Ultimate stuff.
Well, but they're pulling the Ultimate storylines. But if you'll notice, most of their characters their origins are intact. What I like about Spider-Man, the standalone Spider-Man film, is they said, we're not even going to tackle an origin story. It's just going to be a Spider-Man film. So, there you go.
In high school, again.
In high school. Well, it's just fine. Because you
got
to throw away all the
previous.
Yeah. Well, he's not perpetually high school, but they put him back in high school for the Ultimate. But
every time they reboot the line,
I did think it was. I saw the story, or at least the rumor broke that, what's her name, Emma, is apparently interested in playing Spider-Gwen.
That would be kind of neat to see.
All of a sudden, if you went that route with it, you'd fix the end of the second movie. I'd be on board with that. Like, yeah, let's go see this. Just for the sake of something different, but
I think it'd be a cool thing to see. And
I think it
should be a good role for it, too.
Yeah, it'd be really cool.
I'm grateful that they stuck with Peter Parker, because I think that would have a lot of people that... I mean, Spider-Man is probably the most recognizable Marvel character, whether you follow comics or not. And so I think that if you introduced... who's the kid now?
Miles Morales.
Yeah,
Morales. If you just interjected Morales into the MCU, I think you'd turn a lot of people off that are familiar enough with the Spider-Man story to go that aren't diehard fans, and they'll be going, "Who's this new guy? Where's Peter Parker?" So I think
I could see that.
I think it was a calculated move for Marvel. That's all I did. We went got some stuff to do, some home improvement, and then it rained all weekend. So. We bought a bird bath and some mulch. So
the good news is
set up the bird bath and now it's full.
I haven't yet because it's been raining. Well, I have to. We're going to put it in this. We have this flower bed at the front of the house that nothing will grow in. Nothing. So we're going to kind of landscape a little bit, and the bird bath's going to be the center part of that. Well, I have to. The land's kind of sloped, so it gets away from the house anytime it rains or anything. And so I have to go in there and level that one spot where the bird bath is, so the bird bath's not leaning forward. So I can't do that while the ground's wet.
Yeah.
When should I tell Glenn about the salt incident?
Salt? Did you put salt in my flower bed?
Not on purpose.
No, it's that tree. It's that oak tree. It sucks all the nutrients out
It's
of the
the
ground.
tree.
That
Probably
big
a
old
lot
giant
of
oak
shadow
tree.
and
Well,
There's
even
a
if
lot
you've
of
got
shade.
stuff that wants shade, it doesn't grow
won't
there.
grow.
It's not getting any nutrients from the ground. As soon as you put it in, it browns up. It just does not do well.
So-
Our hyacinth under the tree keeps coming up because those things are way residual. So we've decided that we're not hyacinth,
Hostas?
hostas.
Hostas are one of those plants that's tough to kill.
So we've decided that we're just probably going to put hostas in there between everything else that we
there you
landscape.
You should do cactus.
I don't like cactus.
You don't have to
I'd
like
have to,
them.
I'd
They
have
grow.
to do like rock
green.
or gravel or dirt.
I've got some lava rock you could have.
No, thanks.
Do gravel and cactus. It'll be gorgeous. We'll call you Arizona Glen.
Be like all those houses I saw out in Las Vegas that had rock lawns.
Yeah.
Actually, that would solve my
And then you wouldn't have to mow it.
fact that I can't grow it, especially when it's raining so much. Oh my gosh, my backyard's a jungle right now.
Get
'cause
some
I can't
different
got
colored
to
rocks and do a pattern. And you could do a time vortex around the tree.
crop circles.
Yeah, see? Great.
So our the lady who owned the house before us gave us her mower.
Oh, that's
Oh,
nice.
sweet.
That happened to me on my last house.
It won't start for some reason, so we had to take.
That's why she gave you
Well,
the
she was
mower.
like, well, and she wasn't even mowing. She had some neighbor kid come do it. So
Is it a push or?
yeah, it's a push mower. I tried to start it, and then we just loaded it up and took it over to somebody who can look over it really cheap and maintenance. I took my mom's mower over there too to get it maintenanced. You'd be proud to know.
Nice.
Finally, after
Finally.
last year complaining
I
about
probably
it.
could have changed the oil, the spark plug, and sharpened the blade for free.
I could have stood there, looked at it, scratched my head, and said, it doesn't work.
I serviced mine last year and got it. It runs so
That
much
sort of
better.
stuff I could probably do. It just on my mower
But
I
you're
will.
moving, so it's not
On
like-
my mower I probably will. On my mom's, I'll tell her, "Hey, get it serviced." I'm mowing your yard to begin with.
There's
so-
a fun level of, I can do something, I'm not going to do
Well,
something.
yeah.
or should I?
Just because you're technically proficient enough to do it doesn't mean you should.
There's a lot of times I look at projects around my house and go, I could do this. I shouldn't do it, but I could do this. I probably wouldn't do it right, but I could do this.
I'll probably be wading into that territory and learning what I can and can't do because I want to replace pretty much all the outlets in the house because they're all
Welcome to
two-prong.
Oh,
None of them are grounded. Although my dad said that I could put in the 3-prong outlets and not actually ground it and not have a problem.
well, unless you plug audio equipment in there, and then you'll have this nice.
Yeah, I don't have any audio equipment other than the TV.
So we can't record at your house.
Well, would it pick up on the?
Well, probably, yeah.
Really?
Well, yeah, maybe. There's
Well,
audio
actually, there's
connected to
one
it, so.
grounded outlet in the dining room.
We can't.
So-
We can't record on any of this equipment at Sean's house without having instances, and we don't have a ground problem here.
We still don't have stuff on the wall, and I still don't know. It's so echoey as it is now, with hardwood floors and no carpet. I mean,
Yeah,
it
that's
echoes
true.
a lot more. I don't know how much putting stuff on the wall is going to help.
I don't know.
Sean, what'd you do? I saw you movie. I heard you saw a movie.
You saw my movie?
You saw a movie?
You saw it?
I saw lots of stuff this week. I'm so happy.
Oh, jeez.
The big one we went out and saw was Tomorrowland,
Yeah.
which we did last night after work, and it is awesome. I can
It's
understand.
funny because before you go any further, the critic reviews of it are not very good. They're panning it. They're
They're
doing,
very,
and,
very
but everybody that I know that has seen it has said it's a great movie. Go see it.
I'm not going to lie. There are some scripting plot problems that I just chalked up to Lindelof being Lindelof.
Did he write it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He co-wrote it with Brad Bird. All the awesomeness I'm going to chalk up to Brad Bird. All the plot problems I'm going to say are totally Lindelof channeling Lost again. But it's you remember how, I don't know if you guys knew this, but the Tomorrowland at the Disneyland Park was kind
Yeah,
of
we
this
knew that.
cool.
That's about all I know about Tomorrowland at Disneyland Park.
It was supposed to be this grand vision of the future. The problem as the years went on is it was this grand vision of the future from the 50s. So if you went in the 80s and 90s and stuff, it didn't have that.
It has a charm, though.
Well,
it has a charm.
The movie oozes that charm just all over the place because it's very much that idealistic, future from the 50s mode.
We call that retro sci-fi.
Yeah, retro sci-fi. It opens with this young boy going to the New York World's Fair in '64, and he is the Young Inventors Symposium thing, and he comes up with his backpack and pulls it out, and Hugh Laurie is the guy who's kind of looking at him like, okay, what do you got, kid? And he pulls out an Electrolux vacuum cleaner that he has retrofitted into a jetpack. And he says, well, does it work? And then there's this wonderful flashback scene with the kid bouncing across the yard. It's like, well, it doesn't really fly, but, he says, then what's the point of it? He goes, what? He says, well, what's the point of inventing it if it doesn't, what does it do if it doesn't work? What's the point of it? And he says, but it will work. He says, but, okay, let's assume it works. Then what? He says, then what? He goes, well, what do you do with it? And the kid looks at him and goes, it's a jetpack. If I saw a kid flying overhead in a jetpack, I'd be inspired. Sold me right there. The whole movie is built kind of around that premise of we've lost the inspiration and the the drive to go do things instead of just being this. And yeah, there's a plot to it and everything like that. But that feeling, that Walt Disney, let's go do this because we can. Okay. Yeah, I'm on board with that. And I had a great time. It was wonderful and we loved it. And yes, it's got, George Clooney in this kind of adventure sci-fi subplot to thing that's going on too. But it doesn't matter. I'm having a good time because you're optimistic. That's totally where I'm at with this. And I genuinely think the critics that didn't like it are just, well, it wasn't dark enough. I mean, it is PG.
I saw that they're going to do a either prequel novel or graphic novel.
Good.
Exploring the history of Tomorrowland.
Yeah, I'd be down for it.
It's like no characters carrying over. It's just set in the past.
Yeah, it's cool. It was really, and I love the look of it. It was really well filmed and all that jazz. And there's a wonderful scene where they deal with this kind of sci-fi ish retro shop. And man, the shout outs galore throughout geekdom. Some of the big ones are there. Obviously, you expect to see Star Wars in this movie. There's a lot of that, but they had the black hole. They had it was just, I'd have to go back and rewatch that scene over and over and over again just to make sure I caught all the stuff they crammed into it. But yeah, it was really good. Mel and I both really enjoyed it. And this is definitely one I say, don't listen to the critics. Just go and make your own opinion. What else? We finished Archer season 5, or Archer Vice, which is fantastic. And we watched, other than we watched it, this is the only thing I will say about it, we watched Smokin' Aces 2, Assassin's Ball. Utterly forgettable, don't bother. We watched, what was the other one? I'm going to blank on it now.
The Flash season finale was incredible.
Really good.
Oh, man. I think it's probably the best superhero show on TV right now. Even as much as I love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Flash is just so much better.
It's funny you say that because it's just I watch it and I love it. Absolutely love it. I eat it up. It's corny. It's comic booky. It's fun. It's great storytelling. And then they splash in that CW angsty drama into it, and it all works. And I have this struggle of, why is that working?
How does this work?
Why is that working for audiences these days?
And some of the bonkers stuff that they can pull
and
off.
Then I go,
people love it.
Then I go, DC, how come you've got getting it so right on television and so wrong in film?
Well, and they've set up kind of the idea you had between the movies and the films.
Multiverses.
In the show itself. It's ingrained now in the structure. I was spoiled on a certain thing that happened in the end. I don't know how to say it without spoiling anybody, like Sean.
La la la.
A certain demise I was spoiled on. And
that shocked the heck out of me.
Okay, so I knew it was coming.
I kept thinking, why is he here? Why is he here? Why is he... Oh,
I saw that coming, or I knew it was going to happen, and I raised so many questions. I even mentioned all of them to Sarah, except for the one that actually happened. And I should have seen that coming.
I was pleasantly surprised by that.
Oh.
Pleasantly surprised.
It was Kyle and I this morning, because Kyle watches Flash too, and we geeked out over about the finale for about a half hour. Do you remember the other thing you watched?
No.
No.
Game of Thrones, but again, I haven't seen this week's.
I'm actually behind on Orphan Black. I'm not being able to keep up.
You watched any more Arrow?
A little bit. I went and rewatched the first Flash crossover, the Flash versus the Arrow, and then watched the follow-up episode on the Arrow. And I haven't watched any more since then. Yeah, like Thursday, I actually went to bed at a decent time and got up early on Friday. It was really weird. I got up at like 8 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning.
You remembered.
I remembered.
I knew if I stalled long.
Yeah, that was. Thank you. The wheel was turning. The hamster was dead. In a world.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
I really liked it.
I knew you would.
Yeah, it was good. It was a lot of fun. It has
We
that.
told you what took you so long.
Yeah. No, it very much has that kind of indie. You know how indie movies don't really end.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just that, like a big Hollywood
I
production.
don't know that they open end, or they don't end. They end very open ended.
Yeah, they just they
They reached into that story, but it's going to kind of keep going.
Yeah, if it was a Hollywood production, you would have got the happy ending.
Yeah,
and
indie films
they
set
even
it up.
kind of reference that that's not what this is. But
Indie
I kind of
films
still want it.
Indie films always seem to set up as though you know what the ending is. It's almost like they're telling the viewer, you know what the ending is, and it's more of a nod to it's whatever you think. It's not a
But I still occasionally like to be hit over the head with it.
I do. So I totally do.
I
I
like the happy
love the
ending.
Hollywood indie. Don't get me wrong, but that's how what indie films do.
So I
Well,
got
this didn't end sad either.
well,
so.
no, it didn't. It wasn't like a tragedy, but it
no,
just
Indie films don't always have a bleak ending.
No.
it went along and it did its thing and it told its story and it kind of built up with it. We've got this part of it and this part of it and this part of it, and we got to the end and it was like ta-da! I was like. I was left wanting with like 5 minutes, even a title card, a cutscene freeze frame. This is what happened to so and so. I was like, yay! I just wanted that. But no, it was a good movie. I really enjoyed it.
I wonder if Lake Bell left it open, kind of, so hopefully to maybe follow up.
No,
No, they won't do it.
no.
I did that just to go down.
Yeah, I knew you did it. I'll tell you.
No capes.
Speaking of indie films, I've been watching an indie project. It's not a film. You guys seen any episodes of Girls? Which seems weird that I'm watching Girls. But
I've heard
Lena
wonderful
Dunham.
things about it.
Man, I've been binge watching
That's one of the
it.
things I've been wanting to do on HBO Go.
I'm on season 3, and it's oh my gosh, it's really really well done. And it the whole series reminds me of one big epic long indie film is what it is, and it's quite enjoyable.
You're in season 3 already?
I'm in season 3.
Wow.
Of course, there's only.
You're pretty manageable.
Is there even 10 episodes in a season? There's somewhere between 8 and 10 episodes a season. So
Oh, that's-
yeah,
oh.
they're quick,
I'll remember.
and they're only 20 minutes, 23 minutes
Yeah.
on average.
I also started my my watch of Clone Wars finally. So
How far are you?
I'm
Did you start
only.
with the movie?
Well, yeah, I'd seen the movie.
Oh, I know, but did you
No,
rewatch
I
the
didn't
movie?
go back and rewatch.
See, I rewatched the movie,
Which I probably should have, because I'll be honest,
There's gonna
episode
be
1
plot
there was
points.
like, what? Oh yeah, that was in the movie. Okay.
Well, and there's plot points later on in the season that
So how far are
direct
you?
follow.
Oh, I'm only maybe 6 episodes in.
Oh, okay.
We just.
Well, I think I'm 5 in, so I'll catch up to you and we'll just watch along.
Okay.
Just determine how
I'll
many
try to
you
keep
watch in
pace
a
with
week.
you.
We just had they were on a planetoid that was emitting a beep beep beep, and the Separatists were.
Right.
Okay, I just watched that one.
All right. Well, maybe I've watched
Is that the
6
trap?
because I remember that one recently.
Did it have a name?
I don't remember. I don't. The one with was Grievous in that one.
Yeah. Well, but he really wasn't. This was like an outpost that was designed to just kind of be a sensor post. And they sent a fleet of battle droids in that captured the outpost and hardwired the beep, beep, beep so that there was this all clear, and the Federation thought that everything was cool, or the Republic. And meanwhile, Grievous and the fleet of bad guys were going to sail in through that all clear signal, and nobody would have been the wiser, but there was a stalwart couple of clones that,
Okay, that's not the episode I was thinking of.
yeah, had to
I was
Had to
thinking
fight
of the
them
one
off.
with the. Have you guys watched the ship that has the EMP that sends?
Yes. Yeah, that was
that's the
before
one I
that.
was.
That was a
I was like,
two-parter, three-parter.
Technically a three. Well, yeah, because there were
Technically a
two
three-parter.
proper and then a utopia.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm enjoying it.
it's pretty good.
It's not captured my full attention yet, but I've kind of heard that season 1's a little
Yeah, it's up and down.
up and down. So that's it. I think. I don't know. If I remember something else, I'll interrupt us later.
Okay.
In a world.
She did a really good job in the movie too, acting wise. I'm always impressed by her whenever I see her in something.
And I would believe that she would be a great female voiceover.
Oh yeah, she totally would.
Started while we're doing
News. So Moffat and RTD have been talking. So RTD told
Negotiations continue.
Stephen Moffat, according to Radio Times, RTD told Steven Moffat to bring back River Song. Capaldi in Kingston is a sex storm. And Moffat says he's certainly not ruled it out.
More specifically, he said, you come back and write it.
But and he also said it would probably need to be censored if he came back and wrote it. I don't know if I like the idea of River coming back.
I'd be fine with it.
It depends on how it's done.
It's one of those things that, on the one hand, yeah, I'd be totally down for it, just for the sake of seeing her and Capaldi together. I think they would have great chemistry.
Yeah.
However,
Storytelling aspect.
the storytelling, is it needed? We kind of got a farewell. River said her goodbye, and for all intents and purposes, she was Matt Smith's, companion. We'll say that. I don't think of River in 10. I think of River in 11.
Oh, yeah.
And so to suddenly throw her into the mix with 12, especially from the standpoint that, does that throw any confusion into the, well, technically you should have died because you were on your last regeneration until this wonderful gift came down and blah, blah, blah. Unless we go back to a point when she's still around. But that would kind of throw off the backward time travel.
And it would she would still have that question, knowing, because she knows it's established that she knows all of his incarnations. And if he showed up and she didn't know this one, or unless they just didn't address it and she just knew this one.
Yeah, I don't know.
It would be complicated.
If the story called for it, okay. If you could find a way to make the story call for it, okay. Yeah, I'm down for it. But don't ruin the character just to give me the stunt casting.
Agreed.
For all the reasons you said.
Sorry,
River's done. And
I don't mean to jump in on that, Glenn.
I'm quite tired of the trolling that's happening here. So
well, and I'm also
done.
As much as I love Captain Jack, he's done too.
Yeah.
Let's move forward. Let's do more new characters and have more new series regulars instead.
I'd still like to have Jack
revisiting
back.
the well.
I don't think Jack and Capaldi would make a longer.
No, I think Jack's the only one you could bring back as a one or two off, but that's it. I don't think he needs to be a recurring character.
Oh yeah, no, not a regular.
But no, I'm River's done. Her story's done, and I think that Moffat put a nice bow on that. And I think once you bring her back, it cheapens that aspect of it as well. So.
I agree.
And again, I think Moffat and Davis are having a lot of fun, which is great. But I think by dragging this into the media, whenever the media, I'm not faulting them, but when the media drags it into the media, it's trolling.
Well,
I'm done with it.
When we're in such a kind of drought for Who-related news, other than set pictures and possible spoilers,
See, that's the problem. Is nobody can let it lie.
Let's
go back and talk about classic like we do. Let's go back and talk about old episodes.
Exactly.
Let's review stuff. Let's talk about stuff that's established, not stuff that we think should be.
Did you hear they found all the missing episodes in Nigeria?
That would be awesome.
Well, and then the only other news is.
I didn't mean to poo-poo the only news we had of the week.
Well,
I'm just saying, I'm
other people involved in the show talking about generically what's to come, which isn't really too much news.
I think it's okay to speculate upon things that are pretty concrete. Don't get me wrong.
Well, I mean, Moffat
when we start
saying,
talking
in generic
clouds about
statements.
Liver Strong,
that's
not even realism right now.
But Moffat recently has said we're in a very different place with the Doctor and Clara. And this is in relation to 12 pretending he doesn't fancy her. There was so much of that "I'm not your boyfriend" in Season 8 that I find this interesting. We're in a very different place with the Doctor and Clara in the modern series. It's been a while since I've seen the early stages of the 12th Doctor trying to pretend he doesn't fancy Clara. "Oh, you're ugly, disgusting, stop looking so good." In truth, in most cases, with the Doctor, he always loves them more than they love him. That's his story. He's always besotted with them, even though he's trying to pretend that he isn't. So the first half of that makes it sound like he actually fancies Clara, and the other half makes it sound like it's more of a brotherly love that the Doctor has for all of his companions.
And that aspect of it, I'm okay with. I agree with it to an extent that he you know, I don't know. That sounds almost more like more trolling from Moffat, because
so many of these Moffat statements just seem like trolling.
Unless he came up with a really cool idea for a reason to do it, it's not a road I think we need to go down.
Well, and he could just be talking very small nuances in the character, not some big plot point that's going to happen.
Well, but again, I think we'd wrapped. Well, of course, all bets are off now because we had Clara came back, but
she's not done. So
if it had ended there, the simple statement of "you always look like this to me," that spoke so many volumes for that relationship.
And not just her, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, even for Sarah Jane and Joe, when he got to see them when they were older, it kind of comes across like that statement still stands true.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, Glenn?
Trolling. No, I mean, every time that Moffat does an interview, he does these kind of things. And how many times have we in the past heard statements that he said, and then when he lays it out in a series, it's completely different than what he told us. So I don't know why we keep falling for this crap.
We don't fall for it. It's just a matter of there's no other news to talk about.
Well, you're absolutely right. And again, I'm not being the stinker here because
it's
the news isn't worth it, because obviously it's what everybody's talking about, but I refuse to engage.
The wilderness months.
The wilderness months. That's it for news.
Did you hear about that Omni rumor?
Glenn, do you have a Doctor Who legacy
tip of the week?
I do. I was hoping we'd talk a bit more about that so I can get this all lined out. But yes, I do, as a matter of fact.
All the opinions I have.
This tip of the week comes from Glenn.
This tip of the week, actually, I think I've talked a little bit about this before, but I wanted to bring this up again, especially this week, because Chapter 2 is where they have placed our 150 experience, 150% experience. And so you're actually getting some experience. And so in the past, I've talked about when we start going and farming for experience, one of the things that I and a lot of our listeners have pointed out is, Time Lord Ben specifically as well, is, I think Eric even pointed this out, is Jenny in the fan area is a very good place to go in order to get experience. And it's especially good when they are offering 150 in the fan area. But when you go into Chapter 2 and you're looking for something to do experience, a really good one to do is Wedding of a River Song, Weakest Link. And the reason why I like to do this one is because there is one enemy in this, and that's it. So any team you bring in there with fairly high-leveled characters will defeat him quickly. The other thing that is a bonus of this is I find myself with the advanced time fragments, and by that I mean like the Rassilon fragment, the
rainbow crystals.
Yeah. I find that I rarely ever need those, especially when I'm building lower characters up.
Oh, yeah.
And I always seem to have those maxed out at, is it 150 that you can have? Mm-hmm. I always seem to have those maxed out. So if you're maxed out in those particular time fragments, they don't drop. But fortunately, if you go into Chapter 2, this particular level drops black predominantly. Now, you don't get a black time fragment every time, but you'll get one from time to time. And usually one hit will take out this one enemy, whereas with Ginny, you have 3. And while most of the time I can take all 3 of them out with one hit as well, this actually makes it simpler and you can cycle through. And with the with the 150 experience on this week until presumably Wednesday night, or Thursday when they add the new patch. Right now, Ginny is 22,500 experience for the level, and right now, Wedding of a River Song Weakest Link in Chapter 2 is 23,469. So you're actually getting a little bit more for a little less effort put into it. Plus, you're having the chance, if you're in my situation where you've just maxed out your high tier time fragments, and you're needing the black and the pink, which is important as well, because you can't get those in the fan area with the exception of the one level that you can go in and farm those. And so I'm actually getting a little bonus because I'm getting a little more experience in this level, and I'm also getting fragments to drop more frequently because those are the ones I'm using to level up lower characters. So I would suggest if you're looking for something just solely for experience and you want that little added bonus of getting some of those fragments from time to time, this would be the one to go. Again, it's Wedding River Song, Weakest Link. It's quite high in the, I'd say it's probably 2/3 of the way up of the list of things that are open. So if you're working through Chapter 2 right now, obviously you'll have to get there. If you already have done Chapter 2, it's one you can pop it in there and do real easily. So that is my suggestion, and that is my Doctor Who Legacy
Tip of the week.
Now, just to clarify with that, you're talking about taking in a team that is mostly maxed out and then just having a couple of lower...
That's an excellent point, because that's what I do in order to... The nice thing about this particular level is you don't have to pull... I have the Doctor completely maxed out. And then there's no rhyme or reason other than I've just had these guys on a team. I've got Stormageddon, Toby, and the Ark. And the reason being is because those guys pair... Stormageddon turns gems black, so does Toby, and then the Ark gives them the bonus. And so I don't ever have to use them in this level in that way, but that's why they're teamed together. And then I have put 2, actually, I've got them all the way up to 41 just within a day of playing. But I have 2 silence in there now that I'm trying to level up. And so... Yes, you could actually replace any of those first 3 along with 2 with even level 40 even shy of level 40, and still manage this level very well. Because it's a Chapter 2 level, you don't need a really experienced team to even go in here. Now, it may take you more than one hit, because a lot of times I'm going in here with this team, hitting him one time and he's gone.
Yeah.
And so I can cycle through it quicker. But in this instance, unlike Jenny, who... if you've got a lower powered team along with those couple that you've added on there to level up, then it's going to take a little bit more effort in order to take those out. But with this one having only one enemy, it makes it a lot simpler. It's a lot more manageable. Now, again, I don't remember for sure exactly what the experience is on this level once the 150 goes away. I presume you could subtract roughly 50% of what you're getting here. Half of the 150. No.
You divide it by 3.
Divide it by 3. There you go.
And then subtract 1/3.
There you go.
Look at that.
That would be what this level is. So after this week is over.
Still no algebra.
That was another reason I wanted to do this as a tip of the week this week, because you really only have a few more days on the 150. Now, that being said, it seems like every week we get somewhere that they put the 150 experience. So that'll cycle back around here as well. So if you don't get to it this week, just wait a few weeks. It'll probably be back into Chapter 2 again.
And I suppose an added tip for just this one is, of course, the villain of the piece is, what's his name?
I can't remember. He's the one he battles in live chess.
Yeah.
And,
well, he's the
Mark
writer.
Gatiss.
Mark Gatiss, thank you.
Mark Gatiss'
character, who is black, at least as far as his damage goes.
His gem is black.
His gem is black.
His damage is black.
So if you go in with a predominantly yellow team, or somebody, not only do you need a couple of...
You're going to do a lot better against him.
Right. That's words difficult.
Although, because, a good question is that, because I can't remember how it works. Because I'm going in there with a very strong black team, that sounds very racist. Because I'm going in there with a black gemmed team. Did it?
It really did.
I apologize. I didn't intend that.
Hadn't thought about it until you pointed it out.
Let me find out what... let me get back in here really quick. The nice thing is it loads through really fast, too. And if I target him... See, none of the characters that I'm using are getting a negative against him as well, because the black characters don't. Because In fact, they're probably the only ones that aren't weak against another color, because black and yellow balance each other out. So
Right.
yellow is stronger against black, but black is neutral against black. Black's
Right.
even against black. So in my case, actually in any case, because there aren't any the ones that are weaker against black level characters or black characters. So there you go.
Fun stuff.
Keith's having a little more trouble already. It must not have a very
I
strong
have a pretty
team.
low team.
Very low team on there.
Some of
But he's
them-
manageable too. That's the
Oh, yeah,
other thing
I'm
is
not
if
failing.
you have a relatively low team. I mean, obviously you don't want to go in there with a 20 level team. You want to go in there with 25, 30, 40's ideal, 50's the best.
See, I'm even lower than that.
See, but again, manageable at that point as well, because he's not going to completely desecrate your team when you go in there, and it's not how you're knocking him down. You're just kind of chipping away at him.
Yeah,
But
and it depends on the
it's a
color I'm
manageable,
using.
and you're done because it's one wave, and then you
Yeah,
got it. Now
I don't have to worry
you've
about
earned
trying
that
to-
experience.
Didn't have to
And in
heal at
your
all.
case, even though it took you a little longer to do it,
It's
you
getting
get that
more
you're getting more
experience
experience
because they're
across the
lower.
board because you've got more people.
Yeah,
to
I've got an
experience that.
18, 23, 35, 28, and 36.
See, there you go.
And these are just kind of random ones that I'm kind of they work well somewhat together, but not the best.
It also helps that if you wind up in a protracted battle with him, at least normally, his first attack is a not quite lock.
Yes.
His
Yeah.
second attack is, I'm going to sap some of your health in the gems, and then he usually has a 2-turn before he actually hits you with anything. So you've realistically got 4 turns before you lose any damage.
One of his is a lockout, one of his is a drain, and then he starts to attack.
Drain, thank you.
Yeah.
So that gives you a couple swings for the fences before. You
And of
gotta
course,
work
if you
with
have
that.
some tips of the week, send them our way, and we'll utilize them on the show. We're trying to keep track of what we've done so we aren't being repetitive. And again, I may have mentioned this before, but I don't think we framed it around tip of the week. And it was obviously timely to bring it back since we have the 150% experience in Chapter 2 this week. And thank you very much, Doctor Who Legacy Team, Tiny Rebel Games. We appreciate it. Woohoo! You guys continue to give us some phenomenal stuff. And
Keep up the good work.
just an update on everything. I'm still working on maxing players out, so I'm not anywhere close to Time Lord Ben as far as my team or my companions being.
I'm sure
topped
Time Lord
out.
Ben is listening to this tip going,
Yeah. However,
Experience, why would I need that?
what's
I-
experience?
I have managed to finish all of that's available in Season 2. Bigger than Inside, I maxed that out several weeks ago. And I have dropped all of the characters that are available now, so including Polly. So
And you already got all the expert characters.
I do have all the expert characters. There's only characters right now that I could buy. I think I've got a couple of winders that I could buy, but I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I chose when I actually did use some time crystals. I'm glad I chose to buy Silence because you saw who showed up this week, the Red Winder, and he was one of the characters that was for purchase in the store. Who I weighed my options between Silence or Winders. And then I noticed the winders have dropped out, so that makes me sort of wonder if we're going to get more winders in the game and be able to get all of those that way. So I won't have to use any time crystals. So, but yeah, I dropped the winder, and let's see who did I get? The winder was new this week. Well, not this week, but recently. Strakman Lux, Donna Noble. Madame de Pompadour, he's the other library guy. He's the one that's leading the funding the expedition
been a long time since I watched
to the library, and he's also the one who, as we find out later, it was his sister that had died and was sent
it was
to the
his-
library. She's
his
the
family.
brains of the.
Yeah.
Or was it his sister, or was it his? Was it even further back than that?
I think it was further back.
It was another
than that. It was like
generation.
great
though. Yeah.
grandma or
Yes,
something.
that's correct. And then, Rignette, who is obviously Madame de Pompadour. And Polly Wright.
I'm at 106 unlocked of 143 companions and 419 stars. Nowhere near
How do I
close to
know?
you.
Oh, is it up here at the top? Oops.
I'm at 88
Oh, it's right
of
there.
143 companions.
You're at where?
88.
88.
I'm 134 out of 143.
Catch up, Keith.
263 stars. I have a bunch of characters that I could upgrade and get more stars, but I don't know if I want to spend the crystals to use them yet. Because there's some I'm still kind of low on. So it's like,
The eternal struggle.
Yeah.
How many stars did you say you have?
419.
Oh, you're getting there. I'm at 577.
Yeah, you're. I thought I was on a really good tear, and then.
Well, another thing.
I started playing again. It's
another
like,
thing that occurred to me was I was going and maxing my team completely out. And then it occurred to me I could get the stars a lot quicker if I just got to level 41.
You don't have to go all the way.
Because you don't have to go all the way to 50 because you're done. You've got 5 stars once you get to level 41.
Yeah.
And so I decided I'd start doing that and then go back and max everybody out.
After you got everybody else done. All right, well, shall we move on to feedback?
Yes, please.
Feedback. We've got some feedback. Jesse.
It's a flashback there.
Yeah.
I thought of a video we should have done this week.
What?
Has anybody seen the Charlie challenge? It's going around right now, social media, and
The what?
maybe I'll save it because I thought of a fun thing we could do. Okay, let me explain
Save
the Charlie challenge. I'll explain the challenge.
Explain the challenge.
Explain
Save the
challenge.
video.
All right, so this is essentially the 21st century version of the Ouija board. And what you do is you take a piece of paper and you draw 4 quadrants. And in 2 of the diagonal quadrants you put yes, and 2 of the diagonal quadrants you put no. So you've got yes, no in the 4 quadrants.
Okay.
Then you take a pencil and you make a cross. So you've quadranted out your quadrants. You've got lines for your quadrants. You stack one pencil on the other, and they set in crossways. And then you say the words, Charlie, Charlie, are you here? I think is how you say it. Or Charlie, Charlie, can we play? And when you do that, you watch the pencils, and the one pencil on the top will pivot around to either yes or no. And there's Vine videos all over the internet. I was laughing at this thing because there's people that actually believe this. Charlie must be here.
You had to say the words.
All right, hang on. Gotta fix this.
Oh, she's the best part of
Okay, so a technical glitch there, which I'm going to leave in because I may be able to attribute that to the fact that Charlie must have shown up. But anyway, the lore behind this is Charlie is this Mexican demon. And this is actually like real Mexican Latin American lore. That Charlie was this demon.
Like
and he apparently this game has been around for years, but it's just grabbed traction. And
Charlie Spanish for
if
chupacabra?
you don't end the game by telling Charlie to leave, or I can't remember exactly what the premise of it is, if you don't close this game out, he will, well, there's many accounts of what he'll do. He'll either possess somebody, or he'll bring negativity to your house, or he will do nasty things. He won't go away. It's this kid's thing. We kind of talked off mic. It's a lot like Bloody Mary or Candyman. You look in the mirror, you say the name 3 times, and supposedly they appear behind you in the mirror. Those kind of things. So, in the dark, Anyway, it's the latest incarnation of that, and what made me think of it is I've been watching Vines all night at work after I got done, going, these people are idiots.
All right.
So let me get this straight, just so that I'm
I thought it'd
clear.
be fun for us to do it, but do it on video and put it on our YouTube channel.
That'd be something we could periscope too.
Yeah, I could periscope it. There are all kinds of possibilities. We'd do it at Sean's house, so if there really was a demon, it would stay here.
That's the point I wanted to get to there.
Might not close the game just to see what happens.
If you get a chance, Google it and watch some of these vines that these kids are. It's on. There's YouTube videos and stuff. It's a hoot. It is such a hoot. Anyway, I totally derailed the podcast for that. Maybe it's Charlie Pollard. There, I brought it around to Doctor Who.
Pollard?
Charlotte.
They call her Charlie.
Only her friends get to call her Charlie.
All right. Eric writes in. He writes, all creatures great and small. Hey guys, it's been a while. Yeah, I know you've been reading my legacy tips, but I sent all those to you a while ago, and I guess I had to send you some more since you had none last week.
Yes, please do.
Yes, please. Life's been pretty busy here at the Swanfire Farm in recent months. Between my attending college, my wife teaching college, raising 3 boys, and trying to make a productive farm and profitable business, While all these things have been true since I first started listening, things have just felt especially stressful lately. Thankfully, my wife and I are both on a much-needed summer break. Hopefully, we can get stuff done and have a little time to relax. Let's see. The last time I checked in, I think we only had 2 new goat kids, Falcon and Stargazer. They have since been joined by Prometheus, Serenity, and Talon. Talon. What is Talon from?
Batman? Talon's a Batman villain.
Talyn?
L-N-O-N, isn't it?
No,
No,
he
this is
spelled
spelled-
it Talyn.
Oh, well, then no, it's not Batman.
Yeah.
My nephew is named Talon. I just know.
Tylan?
I think so. Farscape.
Farscape.
Oh,
Okay, there you go.
I must not have gotten to that.
I don't watch Farscape, so I watched like the
I've
first
seen
You should watch
I've seen
Farscape.
episodes.
So
I haven't
good.
seen all of it. We also chimed in or claimed. We also claimed a buck kid from a nearby farm before he was born, and we're somewhat surprised that we got to name him. His name is Enterprise. I spent most of the last month binging on Game of Thrones during my free month of HBO Now. I went from halfway through season 2 to almost caught up right before I find lots of people giving up on it because of the most recent episode. I'm not going to comment on that further here other than to say how frustrating that is. Oh well, story of my life. I'll comment on it. I don't see why people are giving up on it.
I agree.
I heard the scuttlebutt about it and expected something horrible. And while it is bad, it's not good.
bad. I wanted
thought
to
we
wait.
would see more of it.
I wanted to wait until I saw this week's episode, because it's hard to justify something that happens like that anytime.
Well, you can't
But-
justify the
but-
activities.
But if it is there for a point to further the story, I had to wait until I saw the resolution because it happens at the very end.
I think it does help further her story.
Okay.
Having seen the next episode, I didn't give up. I kept going,
Yeah.
and the next episode's really good. So
I would just, slight spoilers, I guess, but I would just challenge this by saying, A, there was a wedding involved, so you guys should have known that something bad was going to happen. B,
this is Game of Thrones. Nothing good happens to anybody ever.
B, she's a Stark. It's just, wow, I hope you don't like this character because something inevitably bad is going to happen here. And 3, we're talking about Ramsay Bolton. I can't say I was terribly surprised by it.
Yeah.
You know,
Really, I'm surprised he didn't do worse.
Yeah, and
It sounds like he has done worse
Well,
too.
yeah, but we didn't see it. at least, so.
Off story.
And having run through all of that, I don't want to come out and necessarily say it was tasteful, at least in how it was presented, because obviously it's a horrific act, but it wasn't as graphic as the scuttlebutt I thought kind of everybody...
and it's like the same scuttlebutt from last season with Jaime and Cersei.
Yeah.
I didn't quite understand the scuttlebutt with that either, so... It was horrific what happened.
I think that was more appalling on a certain level because of where it was happening and what was happening.
Yeah.
This was appalling because it was flat out rape.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
just say it. I think everybody knows, if you've been on any social media this week, you've seen the headlines. But I'm not justifying it at all because it's horrific and it probably doesn't have any place in media. But again, I really wanted to wait until I saw this week's episode to see if there was any sort of minute, small reasoning for it to be there for the story.
I think there is.
Okay.
And just based off of the actress's comments about it, how this is her favorite thing that's happened to the character so far because it gives such growth later on.
Okay.
So she loved it. If the actress is okay with it and didn't hate it, I don't know. She is probably the most invested in the character than anyone else.
I love how George R.R. Martin.
Yeah.
Who was in Kansas City
Every
this
time
past weekend?
somebody,
I thought it was... Oh, and he visited Hutchison.
Yeah, Conquest.
I think it's funny that every time that something like this happens in the series, he gets flooded with comments about, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? Every time his answer is,
I wrote this 20 years ago.
These are two different things. What happens in the TV show now is theirs.
That's true.
What happened in the books is mine.
Because this whole storyline with Sansa is not in the
new,
books.
yeah.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
I get a chuckle every time he's like, I don't know. I don't have an answer
now.
for you. It's their thing.
Let me explain. Nah, it's too much. Let me sum up.
He continues. A couple more things before I get to the point. Glenn, how's Discworld treating you?
I haven't gone any further since the Color of Magic yet, but
I hope
I've got a stack of material. I don't have a physical stack because for the most part, as people know, I read digital media.
Glenn has gone to a paperless library.
Right. But I have what would be for tangible people a stack of things to read, and I'm not even done reading what I've been trying to get through for a month, and to no reason other than the fact that I just haven't had time.
A queue list.
Yes, I have a queue list. There you go. I like that key. Nice.
Yeah. He goes on. Sorry, my screen went black. He says, where was I? I hope he didn't give up after the first few.
No, I haven't even given up after the first one.
Yeah, they started out pretty mediocre, but after...
No, I didn't think it was mediocre at all.
Well, then hopefully it just continues to meteorically rise up for you. Because I kind of felt the same way. I thought they were mediocre.
It wasn't the best.
They were enjoyable.
It wasn't the best book I'd ever read, but mediocre would be underselling it. Sorry, I keep jumping here answering, and I should wait till he's done.
After a bit, Sir Terry really begins to flex his satirical muscles and put out some brilliant and frankly inspirational stories. Please hang in there a little longer if you give up before getting to that point. I especially want to recommend Night Watch books and Small Gods as some of his best. You can even skip ahead to Small Gods without it being terribly confusing, as it stands alone in characters, location, and era.
Good to know. No, haven't given up. Plan is to read them chronologically and just when I find the time.
Sean, I seem to remember you mentioning trying to learn guitar a while back, but have not heard anything lately. I'm guessing that, like me, you stepped away from it for a while and you haven't gotten back to it. If that's the case, I want to recommend Musician. Musician. It's an online subscription-based guitar tutorial service that uses your own guitar and a microphone to help you play song games like Guitar Hero or Rock Band. I found it to be a much more enjoyable way to learn. You can try it for free, indefinitely, but you only get about a half hour of playtime every 12 hours if you don't subscribe.
It's probably infinitely more than my practice time actually was. So, yeah, you guessed correctly. Yes, I did kind of have to step away from that for a little bit, which is frustrating because I bought a guitar, man. I've got an amp and a little bit. I do have.
Now that school's done and out of the way for a little while, you can
I
have a little more time.
I bought. What is the name of it? Rocksmith.
Yeah.
Which is the one where you actually plug a guitar into your, and it's got a game disc for the 360, and you play along.
Kind of like
with stuff.
the expert version of Rock Band.
Kind of,
Rock Band,
yeah. But it's one of those things that everything I've read on it says basically all you have to do is play. Just play the game, and you will learn how to play guitar in a month. And it's like, okay.
So you haven't even done that.
I haven't even done that. So. It's one of those, well, I have a cue list.
I know how you feel.
Learn guitar. It's in the list.
Now, on to the topic of this episode. All creatures great and small.
Oh, yeah, we're doing that today, aren't we?
I felt obligated to write in for this one, considering it's concerning Peter Davison and a show that frequently involves livestock. I ended up watching Season 2, Episode 11, Season 3, Episode 6, and Season 4, Episode 6. If you're wondering why those three, it's because if you go to Wikipedia episode guide for the show and search GOAT, those are the only three to come up.
Oh, good job, Dan. Or not Dan, Eric. Sorry. Good job, Eric.
I have to wonder if I would have found the show more enjoyable if I watched it some in order. But the stories seemed as disjointed as if I were to take 3 random episodes for an American soap opera and try to get an impression on them. It probably didn't help that when I watch shows, I tend to be on my iPad while I'm working on chores, depending on the subtitles, working on chores, depending on the subtitles in case I don't catch what they said. The audio on YouTube is frankly not good, and the automatic English subtitles are completely useless. E.g., an example, veterinary was repeatedly subtitled as victory. I think that's worse than no subtitles at all, which my DVDs did not have any. So I'm hoping that I'd think better of the show if I was under better conditions. I know the show has a stellar reputation, so maybe my viewing conditions are to blame for me not feeling much that it was positive towards the characters, especially Siegfried. I really don't like Siegfried. He just came off as a classist jerk to me. Was that the point? ? As for Davison and his character Tristan, I have to say that he made me think that this is what Adric would have been like if he were just a little older and a vet in the English countryside instead of a teenage mathematician getting into deadly situations with the TARDIS crew all over space and time. Which isn't to say that's necessarily bad. He probably would have been more suited for it. I wish I had more to add, but I don't, and I'm probably running out of time anyway. Oh, I do have one more thing, even though it's digging back a month or two. Sean, even I know that Glenn had studied criminal justice. Eric for the win. Until next time, here's hoping I have better things to say. Eric. It's good to hear from you, Eric.
I have no
Sean,
response to that.
It's sad that our listeners know more about me than you do.
I'm old. I've had a stroke. That is my standard excuse for anything from this point forward.
Yeah, and I have to reach for that to forgive you sometimes.
You can ask Chrissy. I used it earlier this week, actually. sending out comic books and had to... What's your last name again? And she went, really? Well, I think I know it.
Chrissy Johnson?
Yeah, that one. Well, I think I know it, but...
Speaking of Chrissy, she sent in feedback.
She did send in feedback. She writes, debauched choir boy. Must be talking about me. Dear Vortex boys, since All Creatures Great and Small has been sitting on my to-watch list forever, I guess this is what it took to finally get me to sit down and watch a few episodes. Okie dokie then. The first thing I noticed about Tristan Farnon is that Peter Davison plays him very much like he plays the Doctor. That is, if the Doctor didn't have any responsibilities to his companions or to the universe. I think I remember an interview where Davison, before he actually started on Doctor Who, but he had been cast, was told by a young fan that he'd like to see the Fifth Doctor be, quote, like Tristan, but brave.
Yeah.
Well, whether or not Davison actually took that request to heart, I have no idea, but it kind of seems like he did. I watched 3 episodes, 2 from Season 1 and 1 from Season 4. Having grown up on a cattle ranch, I couldn't resist the episode where Tristan is trying to sell the newfangled technology of artificial insemination to a village full of old-timers who are still using folk remedies to cure the cows. And then Tristan totally botches the process because his helpers don't have a clue what they're doing. That was hilarious to me. That was episode 3 of Season 4, The Bull with the Bowler Hat. Definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it yet. The other episodes I watched didn't have much Tristan, though. His first full episode, where he comes home because he's failed all of his classes, he's not in it very much. He's mostly just comic relief for his older brother to yell at when he does something wrong or when he doesn't take his job seriously. Although that episode did end with him shirtless, so I'm not complaining about anything. I was going to bring that up, Chrissy. I'm glad I don't have to. Someone during Friday Night Who some weeks ago observed that Sean must be having a bad influence on me. I say that Sean would have had something to influence badly in the first place.
That's a good point, Chrissy.
All in all, this is a fun series and one that I think I'll move further up my list of things to watch this summer. I've been on a period drama kick lately, and this definitely qualifies. Bonus points for being about farm animals in the country, which makes me all kinds of nostalgic for back home at the ranch. Bye for now. Happy Memorial Day for the listeners in the States, and have a good week to listeners everywhere else. Chrissy.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Thank you, Chrissy. And that's it for feedback.
Okie doke.
All
do this.
creatures great and small. The trials and misadventures of the staff of Country Veterinary Office in 1940s Yorkshire. That's
Yep,
my
that about sums it up.
Okay, so we talked before, Mike. How many episodes you guys watch?
I watched 2.
One.
I guess I was the one that watched the most.
You did the most homework this week.
Keith will do the most talking this week.
I watched 3 episodes from season 1, but I talked about last week how he's not in episode 1. Can I say in episode 1 there was a bit more graphic things than I expected from this show?
Okay, so let's talk about that for just a moment.
And I think a little bit in episode 2.
I don't want to appear prudish. Far be it. I like to think of myself as pretty open-minded and outgoing, and prudish is not a word that I would ever think of in anybody's vocabulary to describe me. They had a hand...
Not just a hand, an arm.
and a forearm up a cow's bottom on TV.
And I know it happens, but they always cut away before it actually happens.
I sat there and looked at this and went, so, is this a real cow? Surely this isn't animatronic. They wouldn't have built one of those for this.
I'm assuming it was a real cow.
And I marveled at how this miracle was shot. And then the actor goes, and pulls his arm out. And it's like, nope, that was a real cow. Flabbergasted. Did not expect to see any of this on television. I know it's British and they're far advanced from us, and that we here in the States are essentially prudes. But it just floored me that there was this much of it.
It's not something you'd see on Little House on the Prairie, that's for sure.
No, I think I expected something a little bit more along the lines of Little House on the Prairie. Okay, so I watched 3 episodes in season 1, and then an episode from season 3, 5, and 7.
So you bounced around quite a bit.
Well, I didn't want to rely on YouTube, so I went and... Those were the 4 box sets that the library had. So I just kind of... I jumped forward in season 1. I watched the first 2 and then jumped forward, and then watched the season premieres of each of the seasons.
I watched 2 and 3.
Oh, okay, so I didn't watch 3. I watched episode 8 of season 1.
I watched episode 6 of season 1, and I had enough.
Okay, so
I think I got everything I need to know.
So having watched the
out
show,
of Peter Davison's performance, because I am not here to review this show. I will say that right now, because I would have much worse things to say about this if I was here to review the show.
I don't think it's a bad show.
It's a bit droll. It's
It's
a
not
bit
a
slow.
good show.
I think it gets a lot better. Like jumping forward to season 3, season 1 I was not impressed with, and I thought it was very dry and very slow. Jumping forward to season 3, it was a little bit better. Season 5 wasn't bad. The season 6 or the season 7 episode was quite enjoyable. And Chrissy kind of hits the nail on the head. Tristan is totally comic relief. And pretty much every episode I watched, it's in the later seasons, James and Siegfried somehow find a way to play a practical joke on Tristan. Every single episode. He's like this gullible guy that will fall for anything.
Which is quite the contrast from the second episode, where he's the prankster. He's the one that's trying to pull one over on James.
And I kind of get the impression that that's kind of why. And they're almost mean about some of the stuff they do. Like, okay, so the season 7 episode I watched, which is the most recent one that I did, so it's freshest in my mind. Tristan had gone away. So this is from... In season 5, he leaves at episode 4. And takes off and goes to Ireland for pretty much all of season 6 except for one episode, and then comes back at the beginning of season 7. And so season 7 begins with he's coming back home. And apparently before he left, he got really drunk at a party and couldn't remember if he proposed to a girl or not. So he didn't want to come back beholden to her. And so what's James do? Gets his wife to forge a letter from this girl saying how she can't wait to see him to talk about their future and spray it with perfume. And poor poor Tristan's running around in a state of panic, afraid he's engaged to this girl.
That's just harsh.
And then Siegfried comes around and is trying to get him to get married just to calm him down. And so there's confusion there. And it's just, the episode was really enjoyable. It was much more of the comedy elements that I expected from the show than the serious, which isn't very serious in what I saw.
The show's, I agree with Glenn. It's a much drier, at least to the first season, the ones that I watched, than what I kind of expected. Because you hear, you cannot be a fan of all things British without at some point in time having heard of All Creatures Great and Small.
Well, even my mom read the books when I was younger,
yeah.
So I even knew about it before I was even big into British culture.
And you know, as with most of us, you know, who, you know, in some way, shape, or form got Doctor Who from public television, this was another one of those offerings. Coming up next on KTWU, All Creatures Great and Small. And, you know, I didn't watch it because it's on a farm. It's a little too close to home anyway. And I'm a city boy. But it's definitely a show that I think that I would go back and watch more of. Because, I mean, I didn't hate it by any stretch of the imagination. I enjoyed the ones that I saw, but it's got such a different pacing than anything else that's out there.
Yeah.
And the fact that these are based, I mean, the two books that he wrote are based on his experiences as a vet. So all of these stories are real.
He is the main character.
Yeah.
I mean, he wrote himself into the book, so it's not even like a novel. It's memoirs more than anything
Exactly.
else.
But again, having said that, there were things that I wasn't quite prepared for that happened. That they did. What was her name? Tricky Woo.
Oh.
The woman and Tricky Woo.
That was probably my favorite part of episode 2, was that whole storyline of Tricky Woo and sending him cigars. And apparently Tricky Woo continues.
Tricky Woo is a very large part of episode 3 as well.
When I jumped forward to season 5, the first episode, Tricky Woo is betting on horses. Tricky Woo's this dog.
Tricky Woo's a dog. I don't remember the kind.
I don't remember either. But the previous vet who James is replacing had pretty much become this dog surrogate uncle.
The woman's battier than just and the dog talks to her and she talks to the dog, and the dog writes correspondence to other dog pen pals that she wrote a letter to the editor because Tricky Woo didn't have anybody to play with, and could they possibly find Tricky Woo a pen pal? So Tricky Woo writes to other dogs, and when the vet comes out and James pays a visit and all this kind of stuff, then Tricky wanted to thank you, so Tricky sent a basket of goodies and all this kind of stuff, and so he calls to thank. I just wanted to say thank you. And she goes, well, you can tell him yourself, and holds the phone down to the dog. And he's like, well, thank you, Tricky. It was very... And Peter Davison's on the stairs behind him laughing.
So is Siegfried the whole time.
Yeah, they're like, I can't believe this. And this woman's got more money than she knows what to do with. So, of course, these are not like little thank you gifts. This
are a whole box of nice cigars. And
yeah, in episode 3, he gets literally a wicker basket full of like 100-year-old champagne and cognac. And the guys are all like, as he's pulling all this stuff out of the basket, and they're just like, oh my God. Yeah, Tricky Woo was a lot of fun.
I was telling Sarah about it because I thought she would enjoy that aspect of it. And she had a coworker when she worked in Lawrence who had a dog named Tricky Woo. It's Esquire, right?
Yeah. Tricky Woo Esquire.
So they named their dog Tricky Woo after this dog.
Having said all of that, this is not a show that I would not rush necessarily to watch the show, but it did make me kind of go, I think I should watch a little bit more of this.
I don't know if it's because it got a little, the storylines and the storytelling got a little quicker and a little better as the season grew on, but it grew on me.
Yeah.
By the time I watched the last episode of the season 7 episode I watched, I was like, I'm actually kind of enjoying this.
It's kind of like a fungus. It grows on you. And
the first few episodes, I was like, oh, this is so dry. And Eric, I'm playing on your iPad is a great way to help watch some of these early episodes. My device helped me get through it and not be totally bored.
Now, having said all of that, obviously we watched this for Peter Davison because this is Beyond the Doctor. We want to see what he was like before this. And I think Chrissy really kind of nailed it on the head that it's very much, in a way, similar to his portrayal of the Doctor. Now, I read an article. Peter Davison had a great comment where he talked about, he said when he auditioned for Tristan, he basically lied his ass off. He says, they asked me, do you know how to smoke? I said, yes, I don't know anything about smoking. Can you drink? Yes, I don't know anything about drinking. Do you know about animals? Yes, I don't know anything about animals. And he got the job, so then had to fumble his way through it. And I read that first, which I kind of wish I hadn't, because the first thing I noticed is when he comes off the train when he's coming home, as he lights up a cigarette, and I went, because he cannot smoke at all. It is the worst performance of a non-smoker trying to smoke that I have ever seen in my life.
I found myself distracted by the fact that I was sitting there watching him smoke a cigarette in this episode I watched, and I thought, it's not how you smoke a cigarette. He was drawing it in and blowing out. He was clearly not inhaling. So he's doing this little... And so the smoke's escaping from his mouth as soon as he's drawn any of it into his mouth. And I was so distracted by that I think I missed a couple of lines even because I was like, what's he doing with that cigarette?
So there's that aspect of it to start with. That he's supposed to be this disreputable. He's a drinker, he's a smoker, he's a womanizer. He's failed his classes, and he's just an all around not so great kid. But he's Peter Davison, so automatically,
all night
he's very charming in this.
He is. He's very charming. He's automatically got that win for him.
Well, and I almost can't take the fact that he's that way as serious because he's Peter Davison. He just seems still so squeaky clean as a person and its portrayal that it's like, really, you're doing those things? All right.
But he's a bit snarky like the Doctor is.
He pulls the snark off enough that you're like, okay.
And I think that's where...
You gave me enough to buy it.
Yeah, and I think that's where Chrissy draws the parallel, too, because I think the Fifth Doctor can be snarky with his companions at times. And I saw a lot of that in Tristan and the Doctor. It just, that was very similar in that aspect.
I agree with Eric about Siegfried. I did not like Siegfried. I kept sitting there listening to Siegfried, and I was like, why does Siegfried sound so familiar to me? Mm-hmm. Pretty much whenever he had the pipe in his mouth and was talking around it, which, thanks for, it's not enough to try and deal with the accents. I've got this now. Or when he was yelling. And I thought, why does he look so familiar? And I finally, Mel's like, I know this guy from somewhere. We just saw him in something. What is this guy? So I looked him up. It's Barty Crouch. Yeah. And I went, oh my God. No idea until I looked it up. So then there was that element to it that it was like,
I didn't put those two together.
Okay, so
I figured it out by the end of the episode. I went, oh, that's Barty Crouch.
I kept looking at James, thought he looked familiar, and went and looked him up and hadn't seen him.
So let me get this straight. Barty Crouch's brother is the Doctor, but his son is also the Doctor, who in real life is his brother's son-in-law. Not to confuse you, but yeah, Siegfried kind of struck me as that I wanted to like Siegfried because they were, I think, trying to, and maybe he gets better later, but they were trying to reach for this.
Very that gruff businessman of I want to do what's best and.
Right, but fails so badly at it. He's not a good businessman.
Even with James, he's berating him in the one episode I watched, I had to go out in the middle of the night because you said we would,
Yeah.
And then is later in the episode berating him for not going out in the middle of the night. It's like, really, you're just a big hypocrite.
Yeah, his exact comment is, well, what if the animal dies? And he says, well, it would serve them right, wouldn't it? Maybe they'd call us sooner if they lost an animal. So the next night, James doesn't go out on the call, and he comes in and going, what is wrong with you? You don't let that happen. Well, what if the animal died? Would it be such a bad thing?
Yes!
He's just like, you're a vet. How can you say that? And he's like, but you said it. He goes, no, I didn't. And off he goes. And there were several of those things. He fires Tristan right off the bat. Tristan comes home and he gets fired. And Tristan's up in his room, and James is like, well, I'm sorry about all that. He goes, oh, don't worry about it. He'll have forgotten by tomorrow. He's always firing me, And the next day they were having breakfast and everything was fine. It was just like, I think this guy's got early set on of Alzheimer's. I really genuinely believe that it's a good thing James is there to help him with his practice, because now I'm concerned for the animals, because I don't think he knows what he's doing. But yeah, it was enough that I wish I had gotten a little more Tristan, because I didn't get far enough into it.
Episode 2, there's very little of him. And then the episode I jumped forward to was such a small role in that one too. And even in the season 3 episode, it was bigger, but not a lot, which is why I went on to watch more episodes, because I wanted to get a better taste of how Peter Davison did in the role.
Right.
And it's pretty much uniform all the way across. The character tends to take things a bit more seriously later on, but he's still kind of that fun, womanizing type character that is there for comic relief. And Peter Davison plays it really well.
He does. I think part of it is just Peter Davison's an affable character anyway. He's a nice guy. Even when he's playing a slightly disreputable scoundrel,
yeah,
you're automatically drawn to him. And maybe that's the reverse of this. Maybe if we had come to this from All Creatures going into Doctor Who, that would be a completely different...
Oh, it'd be, very different scene.
Looking at that and being used to that to go to this. Because I can't necessarily think of the Doctor, Peter Davison's Doctor, being... some of the elements of Tristan.
The elements of the Doctor I see in Tristan are when he's actually being a vet.
Yeah,
when he's actually when he's being serious about what he's doing.
You mean when he's playing a doctor?
When he's pretending to be a doctor. When he's doing his job or going out on rounds, that's when I see the Doctor. More than anything else. It's not his personal life at all by any stretch of the imagination.
Although there were a couple of sweaters that he wore. Just stripes. And it was like, because it's almost there. It's almost a cricket outfit, but not quite. And he stands there, and he's got the mask on, where he's got the sweater on and the coat over it. He puts his hands down in his pockets, and I went, that's who he is, I don't know. I feel.
Did you get to meet Helen?
Yes, I think they're.
I think that's episode 3.
Episode 3 that she first comes in, and so I was like, "Oh, I see where this is going."
Is that Jamie's love interest, or sort of love interest? James, not Jamie. James's love interest.
I think she eventually winds up marrying him.
Does she? Okay.
In the episode
they went on a date in the episode I watched.
2 episodes later, he proposes. Because I watched 8, and he proposed in that episode.
Well, I get the impression there was already some sort of a relationship by the time.
Well,
but he asks her out on a date, and they go to a movie, and just everything goes wrong. There's guys talking to him, and he's like, okay, yeah, and she's laughing because the one guy falls asleep behind him, and then he abruptly wakes up and hits James in the back of the head. And anyway, it was an attempt at comedy. Failed.
Yeah, the season 1 comedy doesn't work too well, other than the tricky woo stuff.
Tricky woo. I didn't get any tricky woo. Oh, that I recall anyway.
Well, you've got to watch episode 3. You, Keith, you've got to watch episode 3 because they and of course the woman overfeeds the dog, and she's just
that's why he has to go out.
That's why he's got all these problems because she just pampers him to death, and so he decides that we're going to nip this in the bud. We're going to have Tricky come and stay with us for a week, and the vet's like, "Do you think she'll go for it?" And he goes, "Yeah, I think I can talk her." So he presents this. It's very grave. It's very serious. It could be life-threatening. We've got to, constant care. And, of course, she sends him with his day bed and his night bed and his food and his this and his that, and the servants are carrying all his stuff out. So he gets to the vet center. He takes Tricky Woo and he puts him down in the kennel in the back, and he says, "Go on, have fun." It just leaves him with the rest of the dogs. And all episode long, it's so-and-so. The puppy goes, "Oh, well, it's only her 6th call today. Yes, I'll take it." And well, I think he's a little bit better, but he needs a couple days to convalesce. And the main vet comes in, Siegfried. He says, "So how's he doing?" He says, "He's been trampled. He's been stomped on by the rest of the dogs. I think he's been nipped at by the rats in the barn. He's having the time of his life." And then the basket arrives with all the goodies, and he has this look on his face like, I almost feel bad.
Well, he almost had that look on his face when he got the cigars, too, of, I really didn't do that much. Like the season 5 episode that I watched where Tricky Woo is betting. James goes on behalf of Tricky Woo to place the bet. And Tristan's there in the bar.
Oh, God.
And it's like, that's the bet he's placing? No, that's a bad bet. And so James was thinking about placing that bet too for himself with some change, and Tristan talked him out of it. But then the bookie is like, "Oh no, not that Tricky Woo. He's such a good. He's cleaning me out of house and home." And so Tristan changes his mind and go ahead and goes with Tricky Woo's bet and wins all this money. And so James is mad at him for going behind his back because Tricky Woo's bet went through. And now, a couple minutes later, he's like, "Well, I'm going to go place another bet." "Nope, you can't. The bookie's broke." Because Tricky Woo is such a good bettor. It's like, wow. And the stuff with Tristan in that is so enjoyable, too, because he's like, "Yeah, well, I know all this stuff about horse racing and et cetera, and well, now I can't do it anymore." And so James tries to get back at him and everything. But I brought up Helen because in that episode, Helen has thrown her back out. And so Tristan's there taking care of her some. And they have such a good relationship. They're almost like brother and sister. It's really enjoyable to watch the two of them together. I think I think her involvement in the show and she comes on and does more and more and more to it, makes the show even more enjoyable. I think it adds that extra character. It adds a bit more of a storyline going on where it's not so much of traveling to the farm, taking care of the animal, traveling back from the farm.
So maybe it's just a slow burn.
I think it is a slow burn.
It's just a really, really slow burn.
It takes a little bit to get on its feet.
I'm going to have to watch the Tricky Woo betting episode now.
Maybe I'll have to watch that one too. Maybe just give it a better opportunity. Tricky Woo.
Well, and even though it's the season 5 premiere, there's no reference to what has happened before with Tricky Woo. So had I not seen episode, I'd be like, why is this dog betting and what is going on? Because that's what you see first, and then he goes out to see Tricky Woo at the farm, and she's like, go do this bet. And a lot of it probably wouldn't make sense not having seen episode 2.
I think she even made a comment in episode 2 that Tricky Woo's he's never lost a bet or something like that. And he just kind of looks at her like, what? But Peter Davison is, he's Peter Davison.
Yeah.
It's really enjoyable.
Now,
I'd be a little interested to watch The Last Detective, a show he did later where he's a cop, to see if he plays it a little bit differently.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't he? Do you have IMDb pulled up?
I have IMDb pulled up.
Isn't there an episode of Magnum?
Yes.
Let me pull up.
He plays the villain, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe that's right.
In that episode of Magnum.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
And I
plays the stereotypical British villain, as a matter of fact.
But I remember being mesmerized and horrified as a child because it's the Doctor being a bad guy in much the same way that I was when Tom Baker showed up on Remington Steele as the bad guy. And it was just like, you're not allowed to do that, are you?
Yep, in 1985.
I think I've never seen the episode, but I've seen clips from it. Well, I sort of wish I'd have watched that instead of
the Magnum PI episode.
Rather watch the Magnum PI episode.
Yeah. Glenn really didn't like.
No, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't anything that, and it might have just been the episode I watched, but it's
I was not.
It was
with
very
any of season
dry
1.
period drama. BBC for the same reason I don't watch and these Coronation Street isn't by any means period drama, but it's very soap opera-ish and opera-ish.
Downton Abbey.
And for the same reason I don't watch Downton Abbey or Coronation Street or EastEnders or anything like that. It's British drama just has to have a certain something to it for me to latch onto it and like it. I mean, the Sherlock episodes we watched were fantastic. Period drama. Of course,
Classic
there was familiarity with me because it was classic literature. But overall, it's not something that really grabbed on to me. I appreciated Peter Davison's performance. I thought everybody did a swell job as what they were trying to portray, and I think that the show does what the show sets out to do. So,
and Sarah said that she tried reading the books and thought it was rather dry too. So, I wonder if later in the books it gets a bit more comical and a bit more like the series.
I wonder if it's more from the standpoint of the books are dry because James is dry, and the show starts off as a pretty direct adaptation of the books, and he thinks all these stories of all these
great stories.
That this is my time as a thing. And after the first season or so, the producers may have stepped in and said, "Let's bring Helen in. Let's do." I think there's just the two.
So that obviously when they decided,
which it looks
he
like
wasn't going to write any more books, they figure, well, let's see what we can do.
And it looks like each episode that I saw, everything was accredited as adapted by for the writer. So
adapted from.
Well, or the person who wrote the TV episode, it wasn't written by, it was adapted by.
Right.
So I don't know. I would think if it was an original story based off the characters, it would have been written by. I could be wrong on that.
I think adapted by means you're
Taking
purely drawing from
source
the material based on or inspired by means you're putting your own spin or element on it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the Bond films were
inspired by.
No, they were adapted from originally, and then later when they realized how much they were changing for the movies, they became based on and inspired by.
Because these are credited as from the books by James Herriot.
I mean, the first few episodes of Little House on the Prairie are basically direct adaptations of the books.
And you kind of have to start.
And then at some point, you get away from that because the series takes its own
just like Game of Thrones
avenue. Yeah, and I'm sure All Creatures Great and Small did the same thing. It kind of took on its own character itself. So,
side note for episode 3. Which is called Dog Days, if I remember correctly. And there are a lot of dogs. There's a lot more tricky woo. And there's another gentleman who has a wonderful black Labrador who has a cancerous growth and has to be put down.
Yeah, the show does have a lot of serious aspects to it.
It was another one of those moments that was like, aw, I didn't need this.
In the very first episode, James convinces this, I can't remember, some guy representing another guy to put down a horse.
Yeah. The fallout of which is
in episode 2 and the necropsy and everything. And it's resolved really quickly. But it's still one of those, sometimes they do kill, animals do die on the show. There are serious aspects of it. We've been talking a lot about the comedy, but there's a lot of serious there too.
Well, the one I saw, there was in fact, they made reference to the horse, having to put down the horse, but there's an old cranky farmer who's probably a recurring character, at least up to this point, because the cow he finds it dead in the pasture. And so he wants Jamie to look at it, determine what killed it. And this farmhand keeps going, well, I know what killed it. It was aspiration by something else. It wasn't struck by lightning. And the old man's like, well, look at him and you determine that he got struck by lightning. And of course, Jamie comes out after examining the animal and says, no, he died from heart failure because of asphyxiation. And exactly what this farmhand's saying. And the old man says, no, he was, you can't tell me how my beast died. It was struck by lightning. Well, come find out. It had to be struck by lightning so that he could collect on the insurance because he's out if it dies by natural causes. And so he tries to convince Jamie to say that it was, and Jamie stalwartly says, no, I'm not gonna do that. And so, of course, the old guy says, well, I'll have your job, and I'm going to talk to
Siegfried.
about this, and we'll sure have this squared away, and of course Jamie goes back.
That sounds like it might have been the same guy.
And Siegfried's very, well, I understand that the cow died from asphyxiation. And he says, yeah, he says he wanted me to put on the report that it got struck by lightning. And he says, "Oh, don't worry about it. He doesn't ever want you to come back to the farm, but he says I'll end up squaring it over anyway." And so Siegfried goes out to treat a swine that has, or a pig that has a lesion on its back of some sort. And so he tells the guy straightforward, he says, "I'm going to make you up a salve, you put it on there, but I'm going to take a sample back with me to analyze, and I'll have him send off the results." And anyway, so that we can get the right combination of what we need to put on this animal. But he goes back and he gives that job to Tristan to send the sample off. And so he sticks up for Jamie, saying, "Well, I'll just have to be the one that goes out and deals with old man what's his name." But he's saying, I would just turn him loose as a client, but he says, you really can't do that. We've got to wait for the guy to walk away on his own. And we're just hoping he'll never come back. Well, throughout the course of the thing, there's other things that happen, but at the end, you find out that Siegfried comes off like he's mad because he finds out that Tristan sent off the wrong he swapped two samples. So Siegfried sent out a salve that actually killed the pig. And the old man was mad. And Tristan's like, "Oh gosh, I can't believe it did." He's all, like, "Oh, this is terrible." And then Siegfried turns around and goes, "Yeah, so he's not going to do business with him anymore. So you got rid of him." And everything ends all great and glad. And I thought, how weird is this? And so it was kind of a clever way to, because you think, Tristan's going to get trouble from Siegfried because he screwed up the samples. And in turn, he actually solved the problem that they'd been having, and everything was rosy. So, and they all laugh at the end, and there's this great freeze frame. No, they don't do that. But yeah, that's it. Anyway, that's how that was what I took away from that one. That was the most pleasant thing that happened in that particular story.
What was the most pleasant thing
that was kind of cool.
Pig died.
Pig died. But yeah, so in the course of that one, a cow and a pig died, and they had talked about the horse that they had put down in episodes previous.
Yeah.
Well, 2, where he's examining the cow, and he claims that the cow's got a broken pelvis and is going to have to be put down. And then it turns out I didn't quite catch it. The ligaments create a very similar sound effect of a broken pelvis, and it wasn't this. And then he puts the dog down in episode 3, and Mel's like, he's just cutting a swath through these. First the horse, he tried to get rid of the cow, and then the dog, and he's just this is a terrible vet.
He did in the early episodes, seem very bumbling and not sure what he was doing.
Almost,
there was even like one where he was taking care of a cow and wasn't sure how to take care of it, and it turned out to be like heat stroke. And so he tried several different things and couldn't figure out how to do it, and then finally they fixed it and figured it out, but it was like he didn't know what he was doing. At
some point in this episode, they talked about how James and Tristan both were pretty fresh out of school.
Yeah.
They hadn't been vets for very long. So,
that's a large part of it.
Tristan to a lesser extent for having failed.
Which apparently, and Tristan goes later to work for the Ministry
of Magic.
That's what they called.
Along with Barty Crouch.
He goes get a government job, and one of the episode I watched was him deciding, okay, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to quit the government job and come back and work full time at the office, and them giving him a hard time of, well, no, you're not good enough. We can't get you back. Pranking him, making him think that, oh crap, I just quit this job and now I don't have a backup plan or a fallout plan to go and do, and back to that finding practical jokes and slightly cruel.
Well, speaking like the one was at the end of 2 where they were speaking of things I didn't expect to. You didn't see it, but I didn't want to hear about it either. Where the cow that had given birth to the calf, and apparently the uterus went with it. So they were out there. Yeah, this is why he's shirtless. Is that they're putting it back in the cow, and it's like, okay, that's the whole conversation I did not need to have. But James, in his infinite prankability on Tristan, because Tristan had called and made a comment about the cranky guy and made him believe that he had to come back out there, James gets him back because at the end of the episode he calls and he's like, oh, yes, you need to come out and blah, blah, blah. And you got Tristan, he's like, it's all come out again? It was like, this is a horrible prank. I don't care if it's Tristan or not. You don't do that to somebody. That's just not cool.
All of the pranks are just horrible, pretty much horrible. Even the ones Tristan pulls are pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's the 30s. What are you going to do? Hard up for entertainment.
This is like, well, there was no television, so this
and season 7 you jump to the 50s and there is television. And one of the storylines in the episode is this family completely neglecting their dog because they're too glued to the TV to take care of it. And it's one of those, wow, that's kind of a somber thing in the middle of otherwise what is a pretty fun episode.
What do we got coming up on the schedule?
Well, coming up on the schedule, Friday Night Who this week is The Happiness Patrol with Sylvester McCoy.
Yay!
And then we have a companion archive on Benny Summerfield, or Bernice, as her non-friends would call her. That's you, Glenn. We're going to be doing Big Finish number 13, Shadow of the Scourge, and number 42, The Dark Flame. So you can get some audio this week.
Very good. All right. Well, is there anything else we need to tackle a little before we close this one out?
No, if you, as the last contest we did, I should have all been contacted now. There were, we had 4 comic books from Free Comic Book Day from Titan, and I had 4 people reply, and I have contacted all 4 of them, so your comics are on the way. Of course, this being Memorial Day, they probably won't go out until tomorrow, or today at the time that you listen to this, but they are in the mail.
We can say who the winners are, right? So congratulations to Chrissy.
And Holly. And Dan.
And Ben, right?
And
Ben is the 4th.
Yes, Ben is the 4th.
Okay. So congratulations.
Well, technically, Dan was the 4th. But.
Yeah, and we've got, more games and prizes coming in the future, so.
Yeah. We don't know what yet. But.
No. We make it up as we go along anyway.
You'll be as surprised as we will.
Ta-da.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Good until next week. I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.